We are really happy to see the response that we've been getting on these last accident review videos, because folks have commented that it is important to review how things happen, and it is important to review root cause analysis. You want to find out what happened and why, so you can improve for the future or avoid terrible mistakes that have hurt other people.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Just want to thank you guys for all the great comments and all the personal emails that you sent me about how much you liked that last episode. In this episode, we're going to try to compare and contrast the third accident with the first two that we covered. And it's going to be kind of difficult because this is a little more complicated accident. In fact, for those of you who are sailors, I think you will really enjoy looking at the original report. It has to do with an accidental jibe and also a failure of the traveler and also a preventer that was also not up to par. So those are all sailing terms, and the average person might not really understand all that, but those of you who are sailors, I really urge you to read the original report, and then maybe you can explain it to me. But this is a tragic accident, and I think it's something that we can all be aware of to be able to avoid, and it has to do with avoiding accidental jibes. You know, when I did my American Sailing Association certification to learn how to sail, I was taught and I was told to avoid accidental jibes. I never knew that an accidental jibe was actually responsible for the deaths of several experienced crewmen on a particular boat in a particular time. I had no idea. I guess it is a more serious thing. Avoid accidental jibes at all costs, because it can really not only damage the boat, it can damage you, but in some cases, it actually killed the people. I never knew that. Well, what is an accidental jibe anyway? Well, basically it's when you're sailing and the wind is from behind and all of a sudden the wind shifts and the boom, which is not controlled, violently moves across the boat. You know, an accidental jibe on a little sunfish or a little dinghy, I guess that's really no big deal. But what about on a bigger boat, a 35-foot sailboat, or even a bigger one? You know, you think the bigger the boat, it's safer. I remember I went to the Annapolis sailing show, and there was a young couple who did not have really any sailing experience, and they had bought like a 60-foot new Oyster or a Westerly, some big boat. And I introduced them to my friend who has had 50 years of sailing experience, and he talked to them. Do you have any sailing experience? And they basically said no. He looked at them and he said, you could maim yourself. The bigger the boat, the bigger the forces, and just because the boat's super big doesn't mean it's safer. Well, I've included the original report down below. I urge all of you to read it. I mean, there's no way that a 10-minute video can explain all of the wonderful lessons. Ron Holland is a famous designer of super large and super luxurious sailboats. In fact, he has designed sailboats from the 60-foot range to the 200-foot range. So including the purchase price, $4 million had been spent on this boat, and it was fully equipped and quite a sailing vessel. Well, the crew had not really spent a whole lot of time on this boat learning how to operate it, and so they left New Zealand, headed north towards Fiji, and after 24 hours, that's when the event happened. So, at about 11 o'clock in the morning, the boat turned significantly to starboard, and the skipper believed the boat was turned by a rogue wave but he said he wasn't really sure. And the change in the heading caused the mainsail to be backwinded, which resulted in the wind pushing the mainsail toward the back of the boat. But the preventer failed, and the boom swung violently across the back of the boat and out to the port side. The yacht was now out of control, and the boom quickly swung back to the starboard side. The main sheet was connected to the deck of the yacht via a traveler car on a track mounted across the coaming between the cockpit and the steering position. This meant that to reach the wheel from the cockpit, crew had to cross the path of the rope. Well, it appears that one of the crew members was making an attempt to reach the helm position when the boom swung across the port side for the second time. At that point, rigging associated with the boom struck the crew member, throwing him out of the cockpit to the port side deck. The crew member sustained severe head injuries, most likely killing him instantly. The skipper stated she believed the injuries were directly caused by being struck by the main sheet. It is also possible that parts of the broken preventer were involved or that he was propelled into other equipment. The force of the swinging boom was sufficient to break the main sheet traveler controller, and the traveler car then broke free of the track. The complete failure of the traveler arrangement left the boom swinging from side to side, with the main sheet and traveler hardware hanging from its outboard end. The motion of the boom was now only restricted by the boom hitting the shrouds on either side of the mast. The skipper then called for the others to come up on the deck. Soon after arriving on deck, the first crew member to arrive called out to the skipper to duck, which he did before glimpsing something going overboard on the port side. The skipper then saw the crew member in the water some distance from the yacht, with his arm raised as the yacht continued on out of control. After hearing the skipper call out, the owner made his way to the cockpit from the forward cabin where he had been resting. He spoke briefly to the skipper and found that nothing could be done to help the crew member who had been killed on deck, before making his way to the helm to try to bring the yacht under control. The other crew member was in the day head when he felt, he described, as a dramatic sideways movement and rolling motion to port, which together resulted in him being thrown against the port side. He then heard the skipper call out and made his way out to the cockpit as quickly as he could. He saw the crew member who had been killed on the deck and briefly tried to comfort the skipper before moving aft to the helm area to join the owner. The crew member lost overboard was in the water before the other two crew members arrived on deck. Neither man witnessed him going over, but both did see him at different times during the next few minutes. Well, they did not attempt to rescue the sailor who fell overboard, and then he died. Eventually, the rig itself was to collapse, the yacht losing its mast, and all the rigging just hanging out over to the side. After the shrouds had been cut, the mast fell away and was left hanging over the bow. They were eventually rescued, 2 dead, 3 survivors. What happened? What was the root cause of this accident? I've included the link to the official report for all of you who are interested in finding out all the details. Obviously, the uncontrolled boom moving across the deck of the boat killed the one sailor, but the other one that died that was launched overboard, he didn't have his life vest on. So let's just talk about that. As you can see, those of you who watched all 3 of these videos, there does seem to be a theme about a lack of PFDs, personal flotation devices. Take a look at these popular YouTube videos and sailing images on the web and see how many of these show people in the ocean or coastal cruising or even in bays inland that are wearing life vests. See if you can count them.
Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for our Moody 34 refit process.